let's just say tomorrow a libertarian government is installed in the US.
The first indicator of that working is we would see large amount of people probably unalive.
Bring up Akio is dead. How you doing, Akio?
I wanted to talk to Rachel.
Yeah, this isn't a debate, so we're doing one at a time.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, what did you want to talk to Rachel about? She still might be here, so she probably still might be able to hear you.
Well, I just think like there's a lot of things that don't matter in terms of selecting a political leader. Like somebody's character, whether or not you like his character, that has nothing to do with his competence. How he speaks, or whether or not you like what he says in terms of brashness or respectfulness or any of that sense, has nothing to do with competence and policy, which is what matters in the end. So
Okay. And
I would like to
right,
say
so-
that I am voting for Trump come November, simply because of my political ideologies. I'm a libertarian. I like deregulation. I like small businesses that are going to grow from deregulation, because this is an example in California. I've heard many cases of a tax being imposed, which is evaded by large corporations, but they trap small businesses because small businesses simply don't have the resources to take them to court and deal with the complications from these regulations. So that is a pattern that's seen throughout the economy, where any regulation that's imposed is going to affect small businesses more than large corporations, because large corporations have the resources and the funding available to be able to deal with them on a legal scale.
Okay. And the deregulation you're talking about that goes with as a libertarian, with your libertarian ideology.
Yeah,
Is that the biggest reason that you're?
economics.
Yeah. Is that okay? So there's other reasons why you're a libertarian. Like, is deregulation the biggest reason, the strongest reason?
Well,
Or is it-
economics is a strong standpoint in the libertarian ideology. Also, we advocate for smaller government. We don't want government to be intruding on people's lives. You talk about pro-choice or pro-life. That frankly has nothing to do with the government. Considering abortion is a service and not a constitutional right, which is very clear with the Roe v. Wade decision. The Roe v. Wade decision is not the Supreme Court banning abortion. It's simply stating that you cannot inject a constitutional right that is not there, which was what Roe did with abortion. It was considered within the right to privacy, which has some very complex logical reasoning to be able to discern that abortion is somehow within the right to privacy.
Yeah. Okay.
So within that case itself, the service, like a healthcare service, right? That is the state's right, or the state legislature's business to determine whether or not that states want a certain type of healthcare that's provided.
Okay.
And I think the argument that women's rights are being taken away is absurd, because first of all, the right to abortion is not a thing. There's nowhere in the Constitution which would protect that right. That right is not explicitly stated, nor is it implicitly stated. So it's simply a healthcare service, and I think many people are being lied to that their rights are at stake, which is simply not true, because
I see.
Almost all of the states, if not the vast majority of states, already have laws in place that protect the three exceptions for abortion, which is I won't say on TikTok Live, because I don't want any restrictions. But
Thank you.
yes, we all know what the three exceptions are for abortion.
Does that mean, Akio, that you're against legislation? Because it sounds like, if I'm, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe I've seen reports of states trying to pass laws that would have no exceptions. Is that something are you for, against, or just kind of neutral on?
That's a state's issue, and certain states, they're going to pass the law according to the vote, right? And if you don't want these exceptions to be banned in your state, you should get out and vote. However, I highly doubt that kind of legislation would pass in any state whatsoever, because the majority of people, they don't want. The majority of people are not extreme to the point where they want to ban the three exceptions as well. And I would say, out of pro-lifers, even, that's an extreme standpoint to where you want to ban the three exceptions.
Yeah.
So, and also, okay, what did you want us to say? I was.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
No. I'm just collecting my next thought here. You can go ahead with whatever you want to say.
I guess I want to touch back on the deregulation economics part of your ideology. How well? Let me get an idea of how certain you are that your libertarian ideology is, like, how confident you are that's the right ideology. Scale of 0 to 100. 100, of course, being absolutely certain, no doubt. 0 would be, of course, all doubt. I have a bunch of questions. So where do you think you fall on that scale?
Yeah, of course, with any scale, there's a sweet spot, right? So for me, I would say the libertarian stance, I'm very certain, but I'm not certain to the degree of exactly where I lie. So I would say upwards of 90% certain.
Right around 90?
Upwards
so
of that. So
you strongly agree with it, you'd say? Okay.
Yes, very strongly. But
plus?
with every
okay.
Yes, with every economic ideology, it falls onto its spectrum, from the ideas of communism to the ideas of anarchism and libertarianism or corporatism, or any of those things. They sort of fall on the spectrum. And and
when you put it that way, it I would say that it's kind of hard to, like, think of a number, and it's just to help me kind of see kind of where you land. That's really all it is. So I'm not going to hold you to the number or anything like that.
I want to know if
help me understand where you're at.
If Rachel is still here and listening, because I want to speak to her as well.
Oh, looks like she's in chat. Yeah, she's in chat. So
okay,
okay.
In terms of economics, right? The libertarian golden age, I would say, is around the 1920s, the Roaring '20s. That is a very libertarian sort of economic period. And during that time, we had the Industrial Revolution. We had all of those things due to a lack of government regulation, because of course, we were first discovering these new manufacturing techniques, and we were technologically innovating. So during that time, there was a lack of government regulation on business and in economics, and we had a very large economic boom. And unfortunately, that ended due to the Great Depression. And obviously, with every market up, it has come down. That's just how how natural market cycles work. However, I think because we were so scared of the market correction that we injected a bunch of regulations and laws that unfortunately held back the economy that could have been. Because if we look at New York City and we look at the infrastructure in New York City, that was built during that time period, and since then it hasn't been updated, or rarely updated. And unfortunately, I don't think we're capable of that kind of progress today. I don't think we're anywhere close to that kind of progress that we can make, that we made during the 1920s and 1910.
Yeah. Okay, I hear you. And if you now, let me ask you this: what is, because you said you're like somewhere in the like 90% up. What's keeping you from 100% confidence that the libertarian ideology is the right ideology?
Well, the only things that are keeping me back are like the very specific details. Let's say
Yeah. Like,
how the
give me
economy
your
and the
best example.
government. Let's say national defense, right? Or taxation or things like that. There's very specific ways to govern that I don't have a very specific agenda for. But I am very certain that the libertarian direction is the correct direction.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's just
And
some nuances
what?
and some specifics that for me are it's frankly impossible today to implement the libertarian ideology, but
Yeah.
I still think it's the right direction to go.
Okay. And what would it take for you to lower your confidence that the libertarian ideology is the right one? Like, let's say, what would it take for you to just go down like 10% to 80?
Okay, so in order for that to happen, something would have to conflict the ideas of economic of economic what's the word that I could use, of the logic within economics.
The logic
So
within economics?
yeah, so something would have to say that that merit and skill and intelligence are not the building blocks of success. So something would have to say that the environment is controlling of the outcome, and that happens to overcome whatever skill and whatever merit that the individual has.
When you mean environment, do you mean like the person's background and upbringing, or do you mean like the ecology, like
Just
wind, rain, sun?
anything outside of that individual itself. So let's say
Oh, I
the
see what you mean.
upbringing,
Okay.
let's say their education, let's say whatever
Got it.
town
Got
they
it.
grew up
Okay.
in, anything that revolves around something outside of the individual itself.
Okay. Okay. I just want to clarify, like, were you talking about climate or, something like climate or, okay, but I understand where you're going. Okay. I see what you mean.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
theoretically, right, or not theoretically,
yeah.
practically, even if the climate goes to shit, like we've seen post-apocalyptic movies and things like that, what would happen if the climate was terrible? And still in those environments, still the people with the most skill, the people with the most intelligence, and the people with the most merit still succeed. So
I
it
see.
has nothing to do with environmental factors. And it has nothing to do with anybody's background or upbringing. Of course, that does play into a part of your own skills and merit. But I think eventually, or not fundamentally, the individual decides whether or not they acquire these skills and acquire knowledge and things like that.
Sorry about that, Akio. Sorry,
Yeah,
it
was
kicked
there
me
anything that
outside.
you wanted to?
No, oh, the last thing I heard was even in a like bad, like the shitty climate that we're like
Yeah,
the
like a
post-apocalyptic.
post-apocalyptic world. Even in those cases, it's always the people with the most skill, merit, and intelligence that are at the top, and they always succeed.
Okay, okay.
That's regardless. Even in like third world countries or developing countries where the climate and the environment is not very good, we still see the people with the most skills and merit succeed, regardless of their background. There's many stories of people being born into very impoverished
Yeah.
conditions, and they end up being very successable. So I mean, something would have to
And
go against that kind of pattern in order for me to have some kind of doubt in my ideology.
Would say, like, if you were shown data and to your satisfaction it rings true to you, or it is true, that say, I'm trying to think of something the opposite, so you might have to help me out a little bit here. Instead of merit, skill, and intelligence, that say a collective, like a collective group effort, I guess. Would that be something different than that? Help me out. If it's not, let me know. But I'm trying to think of something alternative. So
Something
maybe an
alternative.
Yeah, then merit, skill, or attention. And maybe I shouldn't try to
Like
specify what it is.
connections or like
maybe-
favors,
or maybe-
backdoor favors or things
or
like
maybe
that.
maybe just like a collective effort, maybe like like a village just working together,
Like
all
cooperation
together.
and collaboration.
Yeah, like a co-op and everybody's equal, something like that. I'm trying to think, so there's really nobody who rises above anybody else. Everyone just, it's a group. They
Right.
maybe there might be like a quasi leader who just organizes everybody, but then just is totally like everybody's equal.
Yes, exactly. I think, yes, you do have a point there, but I would have to add that in those areas, those are usually small villages or small groups of people. If you extend that to a very large population of people with differing backgrounds and with differing ideas, differing cultures, it's very difficult to maintain that sort of cooperation that you would have on a smaller scale. And even within that smaller scale, there's always a divide between who gets the most versus who gets the least. There's no way that we can make everybody within even that small circle equal. There's always going to be a leader of some sort, and that leader is going to have the majority of the say, or at least a say that is greater than his own portion of the population.
I see. And in your mind, what is the biggest benefit of having, like, economically speaking, what is the biggest benefit of merit, skill, and intelligence?
Oh, that's the basis of equality, because in the case where everybody has equal opportunities and equal rights, there is still going to be a very large discrepancy in success, just due to people's either it be willingness to work or willingness to think, or the unwillingness to do those things. So we're never going to be able to get rid of the people who are impoverished, nor are we going to be able to get rid of people who are rich. There's always going to be a top, and there's always going to be a bottom. Now, what we can do is we can try to bring as many people as we can out of poverty, and we don't do that by decreasing the incentive to work, because the incentive to work, the incentive to make money, is what's going to drive the human being to study, to learn, to acquire skills, and to perform better, get better results.
Okay, and I know that you did use the word ideology. So, this is when I think of the word ideology. And if you're, and if you're not with me on this, let me know. I think of, like, in a perfect world, like your libertarian. Like, I think of ideology almost synonymous with utopia. Like, everything goes right. You know what I mean? Or many things go right. Yeah. So that's kind of how I'm seeing it. And so that means that maybe reality falls short of that, but we try to get as close as we can.
Yeah, you are correct. The ideology here. I want to separate what's part of the ideology versus what's part of the parts that are true. So the parts that are true, like I said, are merit and skill based. Even if you have some sort of let's say a communist utopia, right? That's the exact opposite of my ideology. Let's say in those situations, like, we still see people who are so-called
more merited in those places rise to the top. Unfortunately, those are just different types of merits. There are merits that include backdoor favors, or merits that include or of being a Machiavellian or a psychopath or somebody who, or a sociopath, of somebody who's going to do anything to get to the top. And that includes stabbing people in the back and things like that. So it's not entirely merit based, because the system is not rewarding merit in itself. So let's say in a communist country, for example, you can't get to the top by working. So then what do? Your merit is not rewarded. So then what do? You have to rely on backdoor favors, and you have to rely on these things that are outside of healthy human interaction in order to get to the top of where you want to be. So yes, the ideology part is catered to the parts that are the truths in this world, which I 100% believe in. In let's say in the animal kingdom, where there's no regulation, there's no government, there's nothing like that. These are the laws of nature. The laws of nature is that the bigger, badder animal is going to win the fight and acquire whatever resources that they set out for. That's always the case.
And
and if we stray away from that kind of cycle, then we are building towards something that is unhealthy in terms of human well-being.
I see. Okay. If there were instances in the okay, let me back up. So this parallel you draw to the animal kingdom?
Yes.
And did you use the term survival of the fittest? I don't know if.
No, I
don't want to put words in your mouth.
But it could be used in this context.
Okay, I didn't want to put words in your mouth. I just want to be on the same page as you. But you did say the biggest, baddest animal gets the most resources. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, that's almost always the case.
Okay, and almost always the case. And so, in the instances where, if there were instances that were shown to you that, let's say, animals were kind of cooperative and collective, like in a group effort, would that change your perception of that model working or not working?
No, it wouldn't, because in whatever collective that there is, still the biggest, baddest, or most intelligent in this case is going to get a larger share of the spoils. That's true within packs of wolves, within schools of fish, within gorillas. Maybe not schools of fish. I'm not very knowledgeable on fish, but let's say in primates, which are the most closely related to humans, we still see that the silverback gorilla, let's say, for example, or the leader of whatever pack is in, is going to get most of the mating rights, is going to get most of the resources that are there, or have control over most of the resources.
Yeah.
Even in animals that cooperate in packs.
Okay. And I see what you're saying. And so then, given that, if it were,
hold on, I felt like I didn't answer your question about what's ideology and what's like laws of nature. So I want to just
thought you did.
give another input on that.
Yeah,
so,
go ahead.
So the part that's ideology, right, is that we formulate human society around these natural laws. That's part of what the ideology is. These natural laws, they exist. I'm not going to give doubt to them. It's just that the ideological part is, let's say, how we structure our government and how we structure our economy in order to cater to these natural laws, these natural laws of merit, skill, and whether it be efficiency or prowess, Yeah.
Okay. I think I follow you. And what was the next question I was going to ask? In terms of the what if because the examples you cited about communism, and then there was some like backdoor backstabbing, backdoor deals, things like that. How is that? How would that be different than, say, like if they were just falling short of the ideology, and like if someone would argue, well, they were falling short of the ideology and they were working towards that. What would your response be to that? And I'm just curious because the other part of it is, so it's kind of a two-part question. Couldn't someone say the same about the libertarian ideology, that it fell short because of personalities, I guess? This is what.
Let me see if I could
If you understand what I'm saying, yeah. If you understand
I'm trying to figure out what you're trying to say. So let me put it this way. See if it matches what you want to say. So let's say in a communistic regime, we have these backdoor deals, and we have people rising to the top based on let's say their rhetoric in the party, or it doesn't matter what it is, but it would most likely not be something that's going to contribute towards human advancement, if you understand what I mean. So things let's say lying or faking your resume, or backdoor deals, or anything that involves this kind of corruption doesn't contribute towards any human betterment. You know, you're not improving a skill. You're a skill that's going to better the people around you. Mm-hmm. In fact, you're making people around you worse. So, and you're also not improving your, like, any innovation. You're not, like, let's just say you're not moving us in the right direction, because we don't want that to be the idealized image. We don't want the ideal image of what people have to be in order to succeed, to be liars, cheaters, and thieves. Mm-hmm. And people who are not for the betterment of the community.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And if you had, I guess what I was trying to get at was, and I think you did answer it. So I think you did answer it. But just to be clear, what I was trying to ask was, well, actually, no. Let me ask it this way, because I think I know where you're going with this. But let me ask it this way: would you say then that what would you say is the product, or what would you say is driving a person to have backdoor deals, to backstab, and, as you said, rise to the top, even though it's in a communist regime?
Right.
What do you say is behind that?
Right. That would be the primal instincts of greed and hunger for power. You know, There's no person who can rid themselves of these things. Even if you want to be a hermit and you want to live off of the land or whatever, you're still doing that because it makes you feel more powerful, or it makes you feel like you're somehow richer. You know, it just turns into another form. Let's put it that way.
And so if you meet a person who says they don't have that instinct, that primal instinct of wanting to, I guess, dominate?
Yeah.
Would that be a good way to put it?
Yeah.
If you met a person like that, well, how would you say that they're not being honest, or how would you regard?
Well, they're either not being honest or they're suicidal. So, like in the case where a person has no desire for let's say money or power, we can change money into a different form. Let's say resource, abundance. Okay, we can use abundance.
Thank you for the follow.
Okay, we can use abundance, and then we can use power for the other one. So let's say somebody who has no desire for abundance or has no desire for power. That power could mean control over one's own being or control over others. Just depends on how a person internalizes that kind of desire.
Okay.
So let's say somebody who has neither of those two things, they are most definitely not wanting to live life. Because if you want to live, right,
Excuse me.
you first of all want to have an abundance of resources. That is the basic instinct and desire of wanting to survive. Like you want to be able to drink water. And you don't want to be able to drink water just today. You want to be able to drink water whenever you want to or whenever you're thirsty, right? So if somebody has no desire to fulfill their basic need for abundance, then they simply like that's against the laws of a living being.
Okay. Okay. I see what you're saying. And so they're basically, what you're saying is either they're not telling the truth or they don't have the desire to survive.
Yeah,
They
I
have the
certainly
desire
think so.
to survive. Okay. I see what you're saying with that. Okay. This is really interesting, by the way. Because honestly, I had an idea of what the libertarian framework was, but I haven't actually talked with somebody in detail about this. Like I've had like like you read high level stuff about it, like 40,000 foot level, but you don't really get into the weeds like this. So this is actually really interesting to me. And
I mean, the libertarian ideas are based off of just what is natural, what are the laws of nature that govern living beings. And if the ideology is probably not gonna be implemented anytime. It's rather not an ideology. It's like a lack of ideology. It's just letting everything run free the way that it is.
Okay. And what would you say then is, like, maybe give me 2 or 3 keys or 2 or 3 indicators that a libertarian ideology is working, like is successful.
Successful.
Like key performance indicators, I guess.
Okay. Well, the fact that humans have survived is one indicator, because if the libertarian ideology is untrue and is not close to what is the actual law of nature, then in the times that there were no governments, and in the time that there was no large governing body like the United States government or any world power, then humans wouldn't have survived at all, because no leaders would have rose to the top, no merit would have been produced, no innovation would have been produced, and no skills would have been developed, because people simply didn't have a desire for abundance and for improvement of their own lives. And we wouldn't see a disparity between people who have skills and people who are more merited than others rise to the top. And we wouldn't see people who have less merit and less skills, less intelligence fall to the bottom. That's the way that it's always been since the beginning of the human species.
Okay. All right. So human survived. That's one key performance indicator. What's 1 or 2 more?
So that's one. The second one I would say is just
Let me
based off of.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Let me rephrase that real quick. I guess let me say it like this. I thought I might have misled you by the question, so I apologize. What I meant to say was, let's just say tomorrow a libertarian government is installed in the U.S.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, what are like 2 or 3 like key performance indicators you would see, like we could observe, that shows the libertarian government is working as it should.
Okay. So
that's what I meant. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Okay. So the first indicator of that working is we would see large amount of people probably unalive. Okay, we would see a lot of people who are we would see a large amount of people who are living off of the government programs or off of the welfare system to stop doing that. And there would be some people who would perish from that event, of course. But also the people who are working, who are doing well for themselves, who are not receiving the proper rewards that they should be. We would see a lot of people rise more than their current positions. And we would see incompetent people, whether they be at the top or in the middle or anywhere in the system, drop to the bottom.
Okay, so successful people would be even more successful, and then incompetent people would be kind of exposed and be fleshed out.
Yes. So successful people, whether they are currently successful or they are currently held back from their success, would continue to rise and be more successful, and incompetent people would fall to the bottom.
Okay. And then, yeah, one more, if there is one.
And one more would be the amount of money that somebody would have in their pocket would be directly correlated to the value they produce. So how competent they are, how well they do something, how intelligent their management of their surroundings are, and etc. That would be a direct correlation. That would be in direct correlation with the amount of money that they have and the amount of success that they have.
Okay, so it would be directly correlated to, I think what you said, merit, skill, and intelligence. It would be directly correlated to those.
Yeah, I mean these skills are expressed in how well you handle your own well-being and your life, like the things that involve, whether it be your business or your private property or whatever. So everything that pertains to your realm and how well it's managed would be in direct correlation with how successful you are.
Okay. And so then let me play the devil's advocate for a moment. What about people who are elderly and they can't work or have disabilities? Where do they fall?
Yeah, so elderly, right? When you're elderly and let's say you don't have children, well, that's a bad thing because nobody's going to take care of you. So that would incentivize people to have children and to raise their children well and be good to their children. Because if they are not good to their children, then when they're elderly, their children wouldn't return the kindness and the goodness of their heart. So if you raise your children poorly in a libertarian world, they would not return the favor when you are elderly and unable to support yourself.
Okay. And what if you're unable to have children?
Okay, let's say you're unable to have children. There's always there's always adoption, right? There's always ways to have children that are not yours. Let's say that. And in the case of disability, right? Disability people would be taken care of out of the goodness of their heart, which has been the way since the beginning of the human race. All the disabled people, all the people who are unable, were taken care of due to the goodness of the hearts of whatever society that they're in. Okay. So if those people have not contributed anything of value to society, then it would not be long before the goodness of people's hearts run out and they cease to take care of the people who are disabled and elderly.
Okay.
Or the people who have no merit currently.
Okay. And how about people whose children say they were elderly and their children became unalived? That happens.
Okay, that's very
like an 80-year-old. I mean,
yes,
it's a rare thing, but it's rare. Yeah. Now, is that person just screwed? I mean, because I can't imagine an 80-year-old wanting to go adopt, like, say, a 10-year-old and then raise them and say, okay, you're gonna take care of me. Yeah. And then by that time, they're, you see what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying.
What if they don't have the means? Like, what if they don't have the means to take care of that child? Like, maybe they're already destitute. And
that's a good question. In the unfortunate case that happens, I'm sure that there are people who are willing to take care of the elderly, of those two who are elderly.
Of course, that's an
Okay, yeah.
unfortunate event, right? There's always going to be people with money. There's always going to be people with kindness who are going to help them out. And I'd rather have a direct interaction. Let's say, for example, Craigslist or like something like that, GoFundMe, right? There's always people who are willing to help out. Yeah, and I prefer a direct approach to that over, let's say, a very large organization of charity where most of the profits or most of the donations are used to run that organization itself, which is not very efficient.
Okay. Is now for someone, again, I'm still playing devil's advocate here, for someone who wants to minimize loss of life, would libertarianism be the correct choice?
Well, to minimize loss of life, you have to understand that people usually commit crime due to financial hardship, and if we incentivize people to commit crime due to financial hardship, then of course that would increase the amount of crime. If we decentivize people to commit crime due to financial hardship, then there would be less crime due to financial hardship. And if, let's say, loss of life. That's why I think the Second Amendment is very important, because that decentivizes people from committing crime at all. In the situation where, let's say, somebody walks into your store and they want to steal something, you have the right to, let's say, you have the right to deal with that person with your firearm. Then that decentivizes people to do similar things, which forces them to look towards things with merit and things with skill, which is a positive direction for themselves, and that would benefit them financially as well.
Yeah. Okay. I think I see. Yeah, I see where you're going with this. And so, in terms of the, like, what would happen to the incompetent people who fall out of, I guess, would they just go to their, like, where they're supposed to be? I guess is that how you see it, or?
Yeah, because in all fairness, right? If you're incompetent, if you're totally like, the incompetence is frankly a product of some kind of delusion. Because everybody is born with the same brain, with the same body, unless you have disability at birth, of course. But in the majority of cases, the vast majority of cases, there are no disabilities. There are no vast disparities of intelligence to the point where that sort of competence or incompetence is greatly varied. So incompetent people, the way that they're incompetent is because they are incentivized to be incompetent. There are rewards for being incompetent. Let's say somebody who's a beggar who lays in the street, pretending to be disabled in order to get people to feel bad for that person and give them money. Right? Because he's getting money from it, he's going to keep doing it. And of course, that is at that person's own free will. That person is willing to let's say, falsely portray themselves as disabled or something in order to get compensation. And it's very fair. The day that they stop doing that and want to pursue something better is the day they get something better.
I see. Okay. I got it. All right. This really helped me understand. Man, I got a good education on libertarianism today. I understand it much better than I did before we started talking.
This isn't like as much libertarianism as it is my own personal beliefs. It just happens to fall into the category of libertarianism.
Oh, I got it. Okay. Yeah. Would you say I guess is there anything you told me that doesn't line up with libertarianism? Libertarianism is a large field of
of economics. There's
Yeah.
many theories within that, and there's many conflicting theories within it as well.
Oh, I
So,
gotcha. Okay.
so
Well, I guess is
it's
there a consensus to what it is, or is there like
okay. So basically, it moves in two directions. It moves in smaller government to where it's only the basic necessities of a governing body.
yeah.
So that's the direction that it wants to move in. And in terms of economics, it wants to move towards a meritocracy, where
Got
people
it.
with skill and people with
Got it.
ability rise to the top, whereas incompetence falls to the bottom.
I got it. Okay, I see. And what are okay? So you outlined the key performance indicators of successful libertarianism. What are two or three things that would show that, like, if a libertarian government were installed tomorrow here in the U.S., what are two or three things that would show that it's a disaster or it's a failure?
Okay, if it's a failure, I don't see any ways that this could be a failure. Obviously, there's immediate drawbacks, such as people who are living off of government assistance, or people who are incompetent in their own ways, either becoming very destitute or perishing. That would be the immediate drawback. Personally, I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that incompetent people and people who lack the merit to be in the position that they are should be in a lower position.
Yeah.
That's going to be the immediate effect of that. I don't think there would be any. Let's say if it was immediately implemented, obviously there would be a massive loss of government jobs. That would put many people in a more destitute position. But I think over a longer period of time, it's going to transition towards a better system overall. But obviously, with any immediate regime change or any immediate economic or government change that is very drastic like that, there's going to be these sorts of problems happening.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask it this way. If you saw, let's just say one is implemented tomorrow, and let's just say, let's give it some time. Let's say 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
What, like, because that would be probably enough time for the successful people to be more successful. Like the ones who were, like, the meritocracy would be in place. And then the money and resources would all be would be directly correlated to merit, skill, and intelligence. So I guess the more merit, skill, and intelligence you have, the more money and resources you have, right? So if it were shown to you, like if we said 10 years from now, and this is a huge hypothetical. I get that. We're kind of thinking way down the road and all that stuff. Would you say that, would it be, if these two key performance indicators did not happen, let's say that, successful people ended up not being more successful, that there were just various things that just led to downfalls. Okay, not those who were successful, let's say that the ones who rose to the top who thought we would rise to the top, didn't actually rise to the top. Like a lot of them didn't. And then that merit, skill, and intelligence did not lead to more money and resources. Like that just didn't directly correlate somehow. Would you say what would that point to? Would that be because of, there's something else that might have impeded that? Not relating, like not because of libertarianism, or would you say, well, maybe libertarianism isn't quite right after all? Like, you hear what I'm trying to say? Like, do you think there would be like another reason that these two things didn't happen?
Yeah. So, in order for that to absolutely be the case, there would still be some sort of regulation, or some sort of or baseline regulation, or baseline code that everybody follows.
Otherwise, we would have malicious people who are going to infringe on other people's property and other people's. But obviously, that wouldn't be the case if we have, strict laws. Let's say the most strict law of the land, I would say, is probably the Second Amendment. You wouldn't want to infringe on somebody's property rights if you know what they would do to you with their firearm. But let's say, I'm going to make an example here. Let's say sports leagues, and let's say professional sports leagues. Somehow that prospect didn't become a star in the major leagues, in the national leagues, or the top league that there is. Then we could infer that there was a problem with the performance. Right? That individual did not live up to expectations.
I got it.
And the sports league is frankly the epitome of a meritocracy. And as with sports, right?
I guess like for example, like would it be like a glaring reason? Like for example, if an athlete, like there's just times like an athlete doesn't reach their potential, like maybe injuries. You know what I mean? Like they just had they had a string of injuries or major injuries, and then that caused them to not reach their potential, their full potential. Something like that. Would it be something apparent like that? Like, oh yeah, that's the reason why.
Yeah, but then again, injuries are preventable, and part of skill and merit is preventing injuries.
Injuries. Okay.
Yeah. So let's say in this kind of sports league, there would be coaches, there would be managers, and things like that who would regulate kind of where players stand and the organization and things like that. So it's not completely like free for all anarchy. But it's also not regulation to the point where people are rising based on favors or based on things that are not related to merit.
Okay. All right. I think that's all the questions I have. That was really, really interesting. And I think this was a really good conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I was.
What'd you think about it? Yeah, what'd you think?
I think you asked some pretty good questions. I think.
Yeah.
I came in with the intention of talking to whoever was up here before.
Yeah, so. It kind of took a different spin. Yeah, because that's kind of why I like the one-on-ones, because then, because like I said, it's not a debate. It's really, it's to help me understand, and I use that's my hobby. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing with the political candidate is that they represent a party and a certain ideology of that party.
Yeah.
And with let's say Donald Trump, he represents a more right-wing, and in that case a more libertarian stance. And with Kamala Harris, she is very much a left-wing and a very a political candidate or a political part of a political party who wants to progress us in a more left-wing direction. So I don't agree with any of that. So
yeah,
so that's
saying, so your focus is the economics, the smaller government. That's your focus.
Yeah. And so it has nothing to do with the candidate. Like you could put up like a doll or like a fucking, I don't know, like anybody. You can install anybody into the position, and it doesn't matter who's there because that person has less power than the entire political aisle who's going to control the vast majority of the United States government.
Okay. All right. I see where you're going with that. I understand. Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I got, man. That was again, good talk.
Yeah, good talk.
Yeah, man. Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
All right.